Hi, welcome back to the Mum Boss Method podcast. You know who I am. You don't need to hear from me again. I've got another guest on the podcast. I love talking to people. It's like one of my favorite things in life to do. Nicki, hi.
Hi, welcome. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's so nice to have you. So Nicki and I have met through our mentorship program. So we're part of the same business mentorship. And Nicki is such a ray of sunshine. I always see her on our mastermind calls, and she's got this massive smile. And I thought, well, who better than to bring on than another mum who knows the challenges of being a mom. And your son is 5, isn't he?
He is, yes.
So
darling.
Yeah, so I moan and whinge about preteens, and you've got early school years to share with us. So Nicki, introduce yourself, tell everyone who you are, what's your business called, why you started doing it, and who you help.
Cool, lovely. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, so I'm Nicki. So I have been in the fitness industry as a whole for about 10 years now, but to get to where I have done now, it's kind of been a very slow kind of finding a way through stuff. So about 10 years ago, I was in, I don't know what job I'd been in then, maybe event management, potentially. I flipped around a bit, worked in apprenticeships and education. I've always seemed to have jobs that evolved around helping people. So I was helping teenagers get into workplaces. And then it kind of evolved into me working for a college. And then I was doing lots of events. And then I went into event management. All lovely. And on the side, I just got into doing some exercise, and I became a bit addicted to spinning classes. So I used to go to spinning classes a lot at my little local leisure centre in the little town I live near. And loads of the instructors left, and they basically said to me, "You're basically here 6 days a week. Do you want to train to be a spinning instructor?" And I was like, "Sure, if you're going to pay me, carry on." So they did my training for me, and I just started it as a little tiny hobby job. So twice a week, I would teach a spinning class. I just thought it was wonderful. I got paid to do something I loved. And then that was me for like 4 or 5 years. And then I fell pregnant, I had my son, and long story short, my employer at the time wasn't very flexible with my working hours. So it got to the stage I was going to have to go back full time, which I didn't really want to do anyway. But also it meant that there's not a chance I could do full-time event planning and somehow in the evenings run 3 different spin classes a week. It just wasn't going to happen. So I really didn't want to give up the spin. So I decided to take a bit of a big, bold move, and I sacked off my job, and I sat down in maternity leave and started studying to be a personal trainer. So then once I was qualified, I just had no other option but to kind of throw myself in. So I was doing loads and loads of classes, as a lot of kind of people do when they go and come through like the fitness instructor world, teaching those stuff, started doing a lot of one-to-one PTing at the local leisure centre. Roll on 2 years, COVID hit, good old friend. And it took me away from the leisure centre because they were all shut. And I basically took my whole business outside into the park for a year. And to be honest, it was the best thing that happened to me in my business, because suddenly people weren't a member of a leisure centre anymore. All their memberships had been suspended. They could come and exercise. They were allowed to exercise, whether it was in groups of 1, 5 or 7 or whatever the rules were at the time. And especially the time when it was only one-to-one training you were allowed to do. I've never been so full PT wise, because they were happy to pay for PT because it was the only way to exercise with someone. And I ended up with my books full of PT clients. So that kind of just evolved. And then I set up a little studio on my dad lives next door on a farm. I took over one of his cow sheds and basically started doing all my work from a cow shed, because it was open air to meet COVID rules, but it had a roof on, so I wasn't getting freezing cold and wet. And I carried on doing that until about 18 months ago, when I built an indoor studio next to my house, so there's no more cows. But what I found sort of a lot of PT kind of PTs do is that I just wasn't always hitting what people wanted. So it made people fitter, it made people stronger, they got a lot of endorphins, they got this mental release. There was a lot of chat that sometimes we would get to an end of an hour session and they've barely done an exercise, but they've had an hour of just talking through their problems, which is what a lot of people came for. But that kind of goal that a lot of people also came with in regards to fat loss, I just couldn't get into enough with 1 hour session a week. And that's what my clients were. They're not ultra wealthy people. There are people having to sacrifice something else to be able to pay me what was probably £25 an hour at the time to come and see me. So I couldn't see them any more regularly during the week. I couldn't give them more support during the week because my books were full. So even though I wanted to be Miss wraparound care person on WhatsApp, I just didn't have the time. I had a young kid and I had a full-time PT schedule. So I kept my rates low so I could see as many people as I could, but then I couldn't provide them with the service they needed really for fat loss. So I finally decided this summer, let's address this. The reason I've got into everything I've done along that journey is to help people achieve their goals. And I wasn't helping people achieve that specific goal, not as much as I knew I could. All the knowledge was in here. I'd got experience. I knew how to do it. It just wasn't the right platform. So I started online training myself back in the summer. I say in the summer, the sun's come out today, so it's summer. Yeah. Back in July. Took on some new clients, moved across a couple of my original clients, and now, very lovely, the results are coming through that I knew would be there. I just hadn't had the platform to kind of support them. Yeah. So that's a long story short of the 10 years of me getting to where I am.
That's amazing. So much in there that is so so we didn't script this, as everyone that listens regularly knows. I don't script it. I don't edit it. Sometimes the doorbell rings and the dog barks, but I like to just like pick on some of the things that people have said. So something you just said reminded me, I really enjoyed training outside in COVID, even in the cold. I don't know why.
I know, and it became such a thing for so long. Like, even when I had a studio, I still did loads of training outside because, and it was only the winter just gone that I was like, I was done with it, basically. Yeah. I was like, there's only so many hours I can stand outside. They come for 1 hour a week, it's fine. Yeah. So I said, look, let's just move everything inside. It was really handy because I'm really lucky my studio is next to my house. So my son then was 4 years old. He could sit and watch TV while I worked. It worked well for me. And I was like, that's a lot easier childcare-wise than me dragging him to a park or trying to find someone to look after him. And it was only this year that it finally took, or when it finally did come spring time again, I said to my customers, look, do you want some of the classes back outside again? Or do you want them to stay inside? And they were all like, actually, we quite like the facilities now. We might actually stay inside. But any given opportunity, if the sun's out, we're outside. But we're very fair weather outdoors now, whereas before we were any weather, turned up no matter what. Yeah. But, there's so much to be said for outside fitness.
Oh my gosh. And so I think the thing is that we had to, you had to make do with what you could carry around. Like, okay, if you had a studio and you could just bring it outside, it's a little bit different. But, you know, I did a boot camp and it was what I could manage to carry from my car to the park. It was quite dark sometimes as well.
Yeah.
You know, and you just managed, and we're grateful. How grateful were we that we could actually do it?
I remember one day, and I said, where I live now, where my studio is, I didn't live during COVID. So before that, I was like, the only outside option was a park down the road for me. I remember one day it rained the whole day and I had 8 hours of work back to back. I got through 5 raincoats. I phoned up my husband and I asked him to bring down a coat of his because I was like, everything is just drenched. My car was constantly condensated because all there was wet, soggy equipment, clothes in it. And I just spent, it was, I put up a gazebo that blew away one day in the wind. And I was like, well, I'm never having a gazebo again. It was just, but it worked. I said, and if it wasn't for COVID, I honestly would not have the business I had. So I'm very thankful for what it brought me. But I suppose with everything in life, you make it what you make it. A lot of people I knew that were PTs, they very happily took any financial support they could through the, I can't even think what it was called. Furlough, that was the system. I couldn't do that. I hadn't been on systems long enough. I was half self-employed, half employed, and there was no furlough for me. So I either had to work and embrace the rain and luckily grow my business, or I could have sat at home on furlough, not grow my business. So it worked, definitely.
Good. The other thing I wanted to pick out on what you said was about, you know, you see your clients, or you were seeing your clients for 1 hour a week, and what about the rest of the time? And I've been talking to, so I'm doing a 5-day reset free challenge at the minute, and I've been talking to the resetters about this at the minute. So you could, you know, you could do 3-hour PT sessions a week, but there's another 165 hours in the week. And actually those 165 hours are so much more important. Like, don't get me wrong, exercise, PT sessions, amazing. We need to be doing it. But it's so much more important to think about the other 165 hours in the week. So what are the things that you're helping your clients to change that you couldn't when you were their PT?
So much of it is their awareness. So it's not that they liked me before. It wasn't that they were just coming in for their 1 hour a week and pretending like everything's rosy. They honestly didn't stop to reflect. And even if I asked them about how the nutrition's been, what they've been eating, how much they've been walking, all that stuff, they never self-reflected enough. I would often get, yeah, I think I'm all right. I've eaten fairly well this week. Yeah, I had this one meal 2 nights ago that was a bit not suitable. I don't know, been to McDonald's or something, but it was very cherry picking stuff. And that's just what our brains do. Our brains only remember generally the good and the bad, and they don't really remember kind of everything else. And so until I started working with these clients on an accountability side, so they probably use an app maybe similar to you do, where they track habits that we put in place and the behaviors that we put in place, maybe a step target, maybe a movement target, maybe a nutrition calorie target, portions target, until we started tracking stuff daily and they reflected on that daily, they didn't even know what they were doing. And I said, that's so true. Like, it's not anything bad or something to be ashamed of. It's just until you stop and actually reflect back, you have no idea what you're doing. And so it was really easy to start looking and seeing, do you know what? Like, you had no idea that actually for 5 days a week, your step count was literally at 2,000 steps a day. You saw the one walk that you went on a Saturday with your husband, it was 10,000 steps. And in your head, that means you walked 10,000 steps. You don't realise how low the other days have been because you weren't monitoring it. And same with the food intake. Until, I know you're, I think, a similar thing to me. Like, I don't say everyone has to track calories, but I do think it's a really good awareness tool for people to kind of understand what they're eating. And so when they do start tracking things, I had a client the other day that she is one that was a PT client with me for like the last 2 years. And she, like, I didn't know this, and she didn't know it was anything about it. She used to have 6 glasses of orange juice a day because she didn't like water. And she tracked them, and it was like 800 calories worth of orange juice, let alone if we went and go to the blood sugar kind of side of things. But and she was like, I don't even really like orange juice that much. I just don't like water. She was like, it was just, that's what she's always like. The choice was water or orange juice growing up. So she's turned into a fully fledged adult, and she just would drink orange juice, not water. So very quickly, like, she was like, I don't need the orange juice. Oh, that's 800 calories, 600 calories, 500 calories, whatever it might be. It might just be 1 glass. It might be 100 calories that she didn't actually really enjoy, that now she doesn't have. And I said, until we worked that through, she didn't even know it was a thing. And I'm like, if you want to have an orange juice, have one. Like, I'm not going to tell you not to.
Yeah.
Just because, is it worth half your daily allowance in orange juice? No.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's really kind of how different it was in regards to kind of shining a light on all those other days of all the hours of the week. That's not you having one wonderful exercise session a week. Because I said, personal training is brilliant for teaching people how to exercise and motivating people to exercise. And if there's any kind of injuries that we're kind of working around, it's really good to work on that. It's good for accountability. Some people will struggle to exercise unless they're in front of a PT, but it is not the magic answer to what most people are seen to be aiming for when they reach out for it, which is fat loss.
Yeah. It's what you were talking about. That's fascinating. The orange juice example, fascinating. But you know, I did a live yesterday talking about tracking calories because a lot of my resetters have been talking about it this week. And, you know, a lot of people really push against tracking calories. And really what you're doing is just tracking a habit. Eating is often like, we have to eat, we have to fuel our body, but for some people, you know, that pudding after every dinner is a habit. They don't need it, they're not hungry. You're tracking a habit. And I love that saying of what can be measured can be managed. You know, if your client hadn't tracked her calories or her orange juice, or even thought to track her orange juice because she thought, oh, it's liquid, I don't need to track it.
And I think as well, I often find, and you might as well, that again, people don't know what they don't know. If you never track calories and you've never even got to the starting point of understanding what rough number you might even be thinking as a target, it's blind leading the blind. So even all these calories now being on menus and stuff in shops and restaurants, it might say that a fish and chips has got 1,200 calories in it, but unless you know what your body might be needing, it's still just a random number. So I often say to some customers, like, if you don't want to track calories, it's fine. I just want you to have some numbers in your head. I want you to think that your daily numbers you're looking for is, let's say, 1,800 calories a day. And I want you to split that very, very roughly, 400 for breakfast, 500 for lunch, 500 for dinner, leaving, I don't know, what's my mass, another 300 for snacks and drinks. Just have those numbers in your head. So when you're portioning out stuff or looking at pre-packaged sandwiches or whatever it might be, you have got a very rough ballpark figure of, that's kind of close to what I want to be. That's absolutely miles away. And that in itself can put enough restraint on to just choose choices that are more optimal for their goals without being like meticulous in regards to 1 calorie here and 1 calorie there.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Split it out into the meals of the day and a couple of snacks and drinks. Yeah, such a good way of doing it. Such a good way. So 2 of the things we said we would definitely talk about that we must get to, because otherwise we'll talk about something else and we'll digress. So we said we were going to talk about finding the time. So, as you know, I know that you talk about parents on your social media. You know that I work mainly with mums. One of the biggest barriers to investing in themselves, their self-care, their health, their well-being, their weight loss, is that they just can't find the time. So they think that exercise, prepping food, you know, all of the habits that we're asking people to undertake takes loads of time. So we said we were going to look at that, but we also said that we would look at how, when you do prioritize that stuff, it makes you a better parent, you know, and specifically we're mums, so better mums. So, you know, you must hear, I can't find the time so often, and that's obviously why, you know, one of the big reasons why as a PT you'll fill up, because when they pay for that hour they have to find the time, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I said, I think they do interlink really closely, because I think you have to identify the importance of putting yourself first enough to prioritize finding the time. So there's this whole thing, obviously there is this saying 24 hours in the day, but we all know realistically how much stuff we've got to fit in this 24 hours varies massively. But it does all come down to priorities, and that's not I'm prioritizing me and everything has to go out the window. It's kind of how you juggle them. And I also say to clients, like, I think about my time as like, I don't know, a whole line of like dials of like things I need to do. And I just turn one dial up. So like, I don't know if this is a really awful analogy, but like I've only got so much power input into my electricity dials, and I can't have them all at full power because it's going to blow the fuse. But I'm going to have to turn one up and down every day to get some type of balance. And that will vary daily. And I think when people are trying to look at having the time, they're trying to think of, do I have the time every day for the rest of my life? But I'm like, no, we're not looking for every day for the rest of your life. We're looking for now, today, tomorrow. What can give today? Okay, your house does not need hoovering today. Just take the hoovering out, do something else. But actually tomorrow might be hoovering day. It could be. Some days, depending on your kids' ages, sometimes the kids are going to trump it. If they are in regular clubs after school and you've committed to that, then those days are the days that you're not going to be able to do something in the afternoon or evening. But that's not every day. And to rule out every day because some days you can't do something it's such a mindset thing. But something I really try, as I said, obviously I'm a parent myself, but because I run, along with all my PT clients, I run a lot of classes, and I do mum fit specific classes. So I have like twice a week, I probably have 8 to 10 ladies that come that are mums with their babies. So I then come, and then I have a lot of mums come to my normal regular classes as well. And I always find this really interesting in regards to prioritizing. So most of my mum fit clients will come in the day, and they originally inquire because they can't find exercise, they can't find a way to exercise without the child. They don't have the time, childcare, whatever it might be. So it's a really good kind of halfway house, because they come and exercise with the kid, even if they're only 70% productive, because 30% of the time they're dealing with a child. That's 70% more than if they weren't here. A lot of them come instead of going to baby groups. So instead of sitting in a village hall, drinking tea, talking rubbish to a lady you don't really know, or going and paying for baby sensory classes, whatever it might be in the area, they come here, and their kids are still getting interaction. They're still playing with each other. They're still mixing. They're learning how to share. All the stuff they want their kid to get from a baby group, they're getting while they exercise. But what's really interesting is that they'll all, I said, so many will come the same thing. That's the only time they can exercise. And within probably about 1 or 2 months, those same customers are coming to my evening classes, because suddenly it's gone up in their priority. Suddenly they have made a way for them to come and exercise more, because they've had the whole thing. I always remember someone saying about how action leads to motivation. So because they've already started, they've already got exercising, they've already got that positive feedback from it, that motivates them to do it more. And once they're doing it more, they will find a way. They will get their husband to get home from work earlier. They will get a grandparent to come around and sit with the kid. They will find a class that happens after bedtime so that they can still get there. And that might be way later in the evening than they ever wanted to exercise. So my latest class are not that late, they're 7:30 p.m. But by the time they finish, obviously it's 8:30, then I'm in quite a rural area, so some of them will have 20 minutes kind of drives home. But they're never in a rush to go home. They're still here at 9 o'clock. And it's because it's suddenly not become something they have to do, it's something they want to do. But they didn't know they wanted it until they started. And I think that's such an important thing for kind of your customers or anyone listening to understand, is don't expect to wake up and think you're going to have all this motivation to drop everything in life and prioritize it now. It will come through you just starting to chip away at stuff.
I love that. I love that so much. I can just imagine they're like, right, I'll do this 1 hour with the baby, and then they love it so much, and now they're like, right, that's 2 hours of me on a Thursday night, and the child isn't with me.
And they will literally, it's so funny, like when they come to my mum fit classes, they're like, oh, I had to come today because someone's husband's gone away with work, and they're so annoyed because they want to go to the evening class. They want to be child free, and they come to the mum fit, it's like the backup, I have no other option class. But they still do it because they know that's better than nothing. And it's also really nice for them to interact with other mums, and I think a lot of them would like a balance of both anyway, because they get obviously so much from it. But I think that's it, is you just have to start. You've got to get that feeling, because it's the feeling that will make you put it higher up in your priority list. And I think the other thing I was going to say on it as well is, outside of the class that I run and stuff, is not trying to single stuff you do for yourself. There's always has to be separate things. And I think that's a lot of the time people look at their time and think, well, by the time they've got to do this for the kids and this for the kids and take them to this club and they need to do this and they need to cook tea, they can't find hour slots here and there. But I know personally, like, sometimes I question myself for the years, is this selfish? I was like, it's not selfish, because I'm looking after myself. But when I do stuff with my son, I do stuff that he's going to enjoy, but so am I. So that, like, we live quite near the coast in Devon, and a lot of people, there's a town called Sidmouth, and most people would drive from where I live to Sidmouth and park in the car park like normal people would on the seafront. But there's a really nice river walk that's from like 2 miles outside. And for 5 years, I've always gone and parked in this car park 2 miles outside of Sidmouth, walked down to the beach. It started off when my son was in a pram, and we would do it 2 or 3 times a week. It was a really nice flat pram walk. And then he was on his push bike, and then he was kind of on a scooter, and then whatever it was. And it's just normal. That's what we do. He loves to go to the beach. He loves to play park. I love the walk. He likes being on a scooter. And like, if I ask him what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. Now, in realistic world, what happens is that we go down, I park up, he shoots off on his scooter and his bike, and I had this beautiful, tranquil 2-mile walk by myself.
Yeah.
And that might sound selfish, but it's not. Isaac's, my son, is loving life. He enjoys that journey to the beach. I'm having the most peaceful time that I don't have time to go and do that by myself. It's probably at least 2 hours out of my day.
Yeah.
But it's an activity we do together, which he enjoys and I enjoy, and it keeps me active. And I think he could so easily be the kid that says he wants to go to soft play, and sometimes he does, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do soft play, I can't sit still in a swimming room for 2 hours. But I just give him other options, and if he really wants to go, I do take him. But I'll be like, do you want to go on your bike here? Do you want to go and do this? Do you want to go swimming? Do you want to go to the park? Do you want to play football? And there's always something else he actually wants to do. So I just kind of tune the options that I give to him to also suit me, so that I also fill my cup and not get stressed out like soft play does and drain me.
Yeah. And he's being active. You're teaching him to be active, and he knows that that's good time for you as well. And I think it shows you the power of habit. You've always done that with him since he was in a pram, so why wouldn't he use it?
And there's such a funny story to this as well. So we went to said beach the other day, and I walked back with some friends, and they were going to the car park on the seafront where most normal people park. And he literally said to me, I didn't know you could park in Sidmouth. I was like, how does he not know? He literally thought you can drive there, because we've never driven into Sidmouth. We've always stopped 2 miles outside. But as I said, kids are creatures of habit, and whether that's like a baby, or whether that's a 5-year-old, or whether that's a 12-year-old, they only know what we expose them to. And I often say this to clients, is that you set your presidency, you set what is normal. So I carried Isaac in a carrier for a long time when he was a baby, because actually I wanted the health benefits of walking around with a big heavy load on me. I wanted to be able to go up really steep cliff walks and hill walks, because that helped me. It kept him entertained. And then I'll hear other parents say, oh, my kid doesn't want to go in a carry thing, he only wants to walk. And I'm like, every child's different. By all means, every child's different. I've got a very active kid, but they only know what they know. And if you start things young enough that it's normal, then you're not trying to fight against their new normal. Like, if they're always used to just running riot down a pavement and they're so dangerous that you don't want to take them anywhere, then you kind of set your stalls to think that earlier you kind of train kids like their dog. I don't think they're a dog, but the earlier you try to instill normal practice that suits you and suits what you want lifestyle wise, the better. So if you want to be able to go for loads of pram walks, get your kid in that pram as early as stage you can. If you want to be able to carry in places, get them in a carrier as soon as you can. Like, whatever activity you want to do with them, the earlier you expose them to it, not necessarily do it, but the earlier you expose them to it, the earlier they're going to normalize it themselves.
Yeah, I remember the first time Charlie ever asked me if he could come to the gym with me. I was overjoyed.
Yes,
because ever since he was 2.5, he's known that I go to the gym.
Yeah.
So,
and I said, and you weren't, when he was 2.5, you weren't expecting him to join in with you, were you? But now was he 11 now?
He's 12, nearly 13, yeah.
Now he's 12, he probably is going to want to be joining in. And actually, like, it's only because of the exposure to it and the normalizing of it. So I think, with anyone with children, is just trying to set your stall as early as possible, whether your motivator is an intrinsic thing for yourself or an extrinsic thing for your child. Whichever one's the strongest motivator, do it for either of them. If you're doing it for them, brilliant, do it for them. If you're doing it for you, do it for you. But hopefully those two things will kind of link up, because I just see, like, I see so many parents at kids clubs that I take my son to, and they all sat there on the sidelines moaning that they don't have enough time, and they don't. But it's because they're leaving every single evening, they're choosing to take their child to a club and sit and watch it for an hour, whereas I would do a couple clubs and then I would spend that time actually with my son, playing in the park, playing football with him, so that I still stay active. He still gets what he wants out of it, but it's not me sitting in a school hall every night watching him do gymnastics.
Yeah, it's so true. And what do you, so, I think maybe this is a perception, but I have had the experience where some people have said to me, you know, it's easy for you, Chrissy, this is your job and this is what, you know, it wasn't always easy for me, this hasn't always been my job, but I now know the benefits, and I talk about the benefits of staying active, of fueling myself well, you know, of making sure I keep some time aside for me. I know the benefits to me and to my son and to my husband and to our whole lives. Like, what do you see as the benefits to you, and what do you see in your clients that is the benefit to them?
There is such a mental release, and I know it in myself, and I think I've always been very aware of my feelings. I don't meditate, I don't journal, I don't do anything. I've got a very conscious, like, I can feel myself getting down, and I'm quite quick at, like, I'm gonna drag myself out of this hole very quickly. So again, it's funny, a few years ago, me and my husband had a bit of frank chat about it, and there was a few selfish words kind of thrown around in regards to me saying, I need to go for a walk, I need to go here. I was like, that's not me being selfish, that's me preserving myself. He would kind of do the opposite and wouldn't look after himself, and he ended up in a lot darker place than I did. And it took a while for him to see that me kind of putting myself all these little holes daily was keeping myself on a nice level. Him kind of ignoring everything going on and just going down this slippery slope took a lot more effort to pull himself back out of. And I see it as from so many of my kind of customers have said, my mum fit through, I said, which a lot of them have got young babies, toddlers kind of age. They come with literally the weight of their shoulders on them when they come in the door. They're like always, probably half the route, always come in saying, I don't even know how I'm here. I shouldn't really be here. I haven't slept last night. I haven't done this. I just feel knackered. But they've got that accountability that they paid for a class, and they know in them it's going to make them feel better. And I, especially on those classes, if I know someone's coming with a bad day, I am like top parenting. Give me your child. Ignore your child for the next hour. I will be in charge of them. And they literally leave like a different person. They bounce out the room. They're chatting away to their kid about what they're going to do now of the day and where should they go to the park and blah, blah, blah. And like, the difference in an hour is just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And it's that feeling, I said, that people get, and whether that's exercise, mine's always a walk. So I think because exercise is my job, like often people don't find, like, I can't get a mental release exercising in my studio anymore. It doesn't work. So I have to either go to another gym, so I'm out of my workplace, or walking is my thing, like walking and by myself, because I think I spend a lot of time with customers and trying to catch up with friends. When I have no obligations to be anywhere, I'm like, I just want me, maybe me a podcast, but just me. Yeah. Because it brings it, like they always say, you need to fill the cup up, and it does. It really fills my cup. And it's like, even the other day, Sunday, I think it was, I did a charity walk with all my customers, and we walked a 10-mile walk. And I walked 4 miles to get to the start line of the 10-mile walk, because I knew I was about to be with 25 people. And I love these 25 people, I really do. But I'd had busy mum life for a couple of hours, and I was already feeling a little bit itchy, as I call it. And I was like, I haven't got the energy to go and give to my customers that I'm about to see and lead them on this charity walk. So I needed an hour of me time to refill my cup, so I was ready to go. But I think that comes with time. Once you identify those feelings, you know your triggers and you know when to fix it. Yeah. But I think that takes a lot of self-reflection, which I think the more people reach out for help for someone like you or me, and or a therapist, someone where they can figure out those feelings, figure out their triggers, they then can put stuff in place to help them.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing for me with any movement, whether it's in the gym or walking. I'm a big fan of walking as well, and I have a very active dog, so I need to walk. But it gives you that time, I think, for that self-reflection and just analysing the feelings and everything, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And I say, I don't know whether sometimes I'm really thinking loads or thinking not at all. Like sometimes I get to the end of the walk, I'm like, I don't even know what I even thought about. Yeah. I said sometimes sometimes I don't want any music, no podcast. I just want to absorb the outside space. And sometimes I'm like, no, distraction, like put something on in my ears to distract my brain so it doesn't think. And I think again, that's for self-reflection of what do I need today? Am I looking for distraction, or am I looking to actually internalize the feelings of I need to kind of break this down and calm?
Awareness, you've created awareness in yourself. We've come back full circle to what you help your clients to create, for sure.
And I just think I think that's just so important for all our clients that are mums, because they need to have awareness of self, but also they're bringing up children now, and you, like most, I would hope, majority of parents want their children to brought up in a world where they have control over their feelings and they understand their feelings. And I think if you don't understand your own feelings as a parent, how are you going to help your child understand their feelings? And if you're a snappy, angry parent, which, let's be honest, we all have it in us, like, it's just whether it's suppressed enough more than anything. And if your reaction is just always to be snappy and always to be angry because you're never dealing with your own emotions, you're putting that onto your kids, and that's how they're gonna behave. And like, I am by all means not perfect, and that's why sometimes I catch myself and I think, Christ almighty, I was angry at my poor son today. Like, I'm angry at him, not because of him, because I'm actually frustrated that I haven't given myself enough time off for the last couple of days. I haven't filled up my cup. I haven't done enough stuff for me. I just feel like I've given to everyone else and not to myself. And I always go to apologize to him. And I'm like, I wasn't angry at you. I'm really sorry. Like, I just needed a bit of space. So I didn't take it, and I should have taken it. And I think it's important for them to then realize that you can be wrong, you can make mistakes, and for them to identify that they might not be angry at their mate at school. It might be that they were just tired and cranky themselves, and their mate was just in the way, basically.
It was Charlie's first day back at school yesterday, and obviously it's been really hot as well. And he got back in, he came and sat, I've got a little sofa next to my desk. He came and sat on the sofa, and I was talking to him, you know, how was your day? How was it to be back? Was it nice seeing your friends? And he just looked at me and he was like, Mum, because he refuses to call me mummy anymore. Mum, I just need to not talk for a little while. I just need some quiet time. And I was like, all right, mate, you talk to me when you're ready. And he just sat there, and he, you know, I think at some point he closed his eyes and he just was like sat there cuddling the dog. And then 45 minutes later he was ready to talk, but he'd had enough. And I thought, that's actually a massive win, not just because it was another 45 minutes of quiet time for me, but because he recognized what he needed in that moment.
And it shows as well, the fact he actually did that in the room with you shows that a lot of times kids just want to be with you. They don't need anything from you. They just want to be with you. And that's why sometimes when I link back to kind of like when I'm choosing things to do with my son, like, it isn't really what we do. He just wants to be with me. So if I can choose an activity that actually I'm going to enjoy and actually I'm going to get something from, he still gets something from it because he's with the person he wants to be with. He doesn't, it's not that he wants to go to soft play. He just wants me to take him somewhere or be with him for an hour. And
I know, sorry, I thought you'd finish. Go on.
No, I was going to say, like, I think I probably was finished with it. It's like, go take him to soft play. Like, I take him to soft play, he spends less time with me than I would do if I take him somewhere else. Because I'm only going to drive him there, sit at a table, watch him run around like a lunatic, and then drive him home again. So I think they get so much more from like just being in our presence and feeling connected and feeling wanted and feeling heard when they want to talk and not heard when they don't want to talk.
For sure. Yeah, my dogs come to say hello now. Get down, we're going to go out in a minute. It has been amazing to talk to you. I've really enjoyed it. Where can people find you if they want to come and follow you?
So I'm on Instagram, NProve Fitness. I don't think I've actually said that out loud before. I'm on Facebook as well, because a lot of my customers are still big Facebook fans. So NProve Fitness on there, or nprovefitness.co.uk. So that is N as in the letter N for November, prove, because it's my initials. Makes sense. So yeah, come and find me on there. As I said, if anyone wants any coaching and you're not suitable for them, which I'm sure you are, come my way. Otherwise, if you happen to be in the East Devon area, then come and find me in person. I run lots of classes. But no, thank you so much. So nice to chat to someone with very similar mindsets. So it's good.
For sure. I'll make sure that all your links are in the show notes as well. Thank
you. Take care.
everyone. Have a good week and thank you for listening. See you later. Bye.